Hi everyone, I hope you're all doing really well and welcome back to my podcast, Life of an Artrepreneur, and welcome back to another episode. So in today's episode, I'm going to do another artist Q&A. I put a question box on my Instagram story the other day and a few of you have asked me some questions on there, so I'm going to go through them on my iPad and pick out sort of the best ones to answer and try and squeeze them all into one episode. So there's quite a range of questions, which is nice. Some that I actually haven't had before either. So let's get started. So we'll kick things off with a nice easy one, which is, what are your favourite animals to draw? I think that's pretty obvious, obviously dogs. But I do like drawing wildlife just because everything's completely different. Like, you're always learning a different texture to draw, whether it's birds, like British, African wildlife, like all the patterns, all the details. I feel like just drawing wildlife in general just keeps that variety in what you draw. It keeps things interesting and you're always learning something new. It's not like you're constantly just drawing fur all the time. But to be honest, the variety of dog breeds is that broad that it feels like you're drawing a completely different animal every time. Like, all the shapes are different, like the sizes, the fur texture. Some are really thick and fluffy, some are like really short and like sleek, some have patterns, some don't. The colours are so different. So I think obviously dogs are my favourite to draw, but I do like drawing a variety of different things. I find the most challenging animal to draw is actually birds. I find drawing birds quite difficult, even though I do really like drawing birds. I think because you have to be so delicate in drawing every single part of the feather, so those feathers look really like dainty and light, they're quite difficult to draw. I always find working on drafting film helps to get those details in and to help me stay sort of light-handed and delicate with my like drawing style. But yeah, I'd definitely say dogs are my favourite to draw. And in terms of breeds, I actually love drawing spaniels. I like spaniels and golden retrievers, but again, I like having that variety, so definitely dogs, which is a pretty obvious answer, I think. The next one is, have you ever compared yourself to others, felt not good enough and wanted to give up? I think not to that extent, but when you're sharing your work on social media, and so is everyone else, obviously when you go on it, all you kind of bombarded with is everyone else's work and what everyone else is up to, and it can sometimes feel like, oh, I'm not doing that, mine's not as good as that, or I've not got as many opportunities as this person, or like, it's very easy to kind of go down that spiral of self-doubt and not having that belief in yourself. But I think within like the artist community, especially pet portrait and wildlife artists, it's so supportive that if you do post something that you're a bit like unsure on, it's not your best work, the amount of encouragement and comments that you get can just give you that extra little boost. I feel like comparing yourself to others is natural. It can't really be avoided, but you've got to do your best to avoid it. Just try and focus solely on what you're doing and stay in your lane. And as long as whatever you're doing is better than what you did previously, like you're constantly improving your drawing, you're constantly, seeking new opportunities, you're constantly pushing yourself and learning something new, then you can't really do much more than that. I think over time you'll become more confident and be less likely to compare yourself with others. But even if you're a complete beginner, or even if you're like at the top, you're always going to have people that are doing similar things to you at a similar like sort of level. And I think try and shift your mindset from seeing them as competition, and you could like collaborate with them or learn from them, like bounce ideas off each other, because especially as a creative person, it's a really good thing to do that. So stay in your lane, focus on what you're doing. As long as you're like so invested in what you're doing, you kind of automatically block out that sort of outside noise, and you compare yourself a lot less to what other people are doing. But I guess initially it is something that's quite a natural thing to do. And I think it's a good thing, to be honest, to kind of go and see what other artists are doing, and as a beginner especially, kind of position yourself as to where skill wise you think you're at, and do a bit of like market research in a way. Just see what other people are charging, what they're up to, and you can kind of figure out your place within the pet portrait and wildlife sort of niche. The next question is, where did you get your craft knife from? I love your podcast. Thank you, Jess. So it's available either on Amazon or on Dalton Safety. I've got mine from Dalton Safety. I think they're a little bit cheaper than Amazon. And I also have a code for Dalton Safety, which is Becca 10 in capitals, which will get you 10% off. So some of you might be wondering, what is a craft knife or a slice tool, or craft knife slice tool, whatever you want to call it. I feel like I've honestly gone on about this so much in like all of my videos. I know my patrons are absolutely sick of me going on about this because I use it in all my tutorials and I'm like, here we go again. But honestly, it just elevates that realistic element in your work so much. And I like to look back at my work before I started using this compared to now. And the difference is just crazy. I don't know if it's going to focus, but it's basically like a ceramic blade. It's got a curved side and a pointy side. It's not really that sharp, but you can basically like remove those top layers of coloured pencils. And once you've completely squashed down the tooth of the paper and everything's looking really blended and smooth, that coloured pencil should just slide off really easily. And you can create some really nice like fine highlights and marks within your drawing. So it's great for fur. It works incredibly well on drafting film and on the extra white hot pressed Fabriano Artistico paper, which is what I use for most of my tutorials and my commissions. It's honestly just the best. Like, I can't recommend it enough. I've actually done a YouTube video about this, kind of showing you how it works and just talking about it a little bit more in depth and demonstrating how to actually use this. So I'll link that video in this episode description. So if you want to go and watch that, then you can do. And I'll leave a link to this in the episode description as well, along with my discount code, which will get you 10% off. But yeah, I actually couldn't recommend this enough. It's just the best tool ever, ever created. The next question is, I'm really struggling to stay consistent with booking commissions. Any tips? I feel like throughout the year, you'll always have periods that people are more interested in booking in commissions and inquiring, and periods that are a bit quieter. I feel like that's normal. You'll find obviously it'll pick up a lot on the run up to Christmas or after Christmas, when people have seen a lot of your work, like all the commissions you've been working on. When you start sharing them, obviously people are interested. You're showcasing all of that hard work you've put in over Christmas. For me, I'm trying to slightly steer away from commissions this year. I'm still doing them, but I'm only doing like a few, like 2, 3, potentially 4 a month, compared to sort of 6-ish that I was doing last year. I think it gets too much with obviously this podcast. I want to put more time into my Patreon and the teaching side and like workshops. I think it's a lot to juggle at once, so I just wanted to cut down a little bit on commissions this year. But any interest that I do get in commissions or inquiries, I usually get through either Facebook, Instagram, or my website. And a few recently have actually been TikTok, but I feel like Instagram over everything is where the most interest is, because I feel like, I've spoken about this before, but I like to see Instagram as almost like an online portfolio where you can showcase like the process, start to finish, pictures of your work, and yeah, just use it as a portfolio. And I think the more that you post, and if you stay consistent with posting, people are more likely to see it and inquire. You also want to make sure that it's as easy as possible for someone to get in touch with you and for you to reply within a reasonable time. But if you have a website, make sure it's really clear how they can contact you. But yeah, I just think stay really consistent on social media. I think that's the best advice I can give, and that's been the main thing that's got me commissions and opportunities, and it's just put my work in front of an audience of people that I wouldn't have been able to reach if it wasn't for constantly posting on socials. But yeah, it is a lot of effort, and it does take a long time to grow. It's not like an overnight thing. It does take time. I think if your content's really good, so you're documenting little bits as you're drawing, and then you edit that really well into a reel, but you're having that mixture between reels and posts, I think that's always a good thing. Also, I think now people who buy from you or who are interested in a commission or buying an original or a print, they're almost investing as much in you as they are in the art. Like, people like to see the artist behind the artwork these days. So I feel like socials is obviously a really good place to show that, because you can show behind the scenes and you can show you working in the studio, and they kind of get the full picture of what they're actually buying. So that's probably the best advice I can give when it comes to commissions and trying to stay consistently busy with them. But like I said, there are periods of the year where it does kind of dip and then we get more interest and it dips again. But as long as you stay consistent on social media, it should really help with that. So the next question from one of our lovely patrons, Sil, is, how do you manage your self-confidence when one drawing was impossible for you? I think try and remove the thought of a drawing is impossible, because I feel like if you're drawing to begin with, then you already have a massive skill that most people don't have. And it's just about applying the right techniques to different parts of the drawing, and most of the time you'll already know those techniques. It's just learning when and when not to apply them for different textures or different parts of a drawing. I feel like there's been loads of drawings that have not gone my way, like especially initially when you're learning all these different textures and you're really practicing that development of your drawing skills. You are going to be faced with a lot of challenges for the first time, and there'll be a lot of drawings that you think, oh, I don't really like this. And for me, I just have to keep working through it. Even if I hate it, if I keep working on it, I eventually get to a point where I can see it's starting to go the other way. There's a turning point where I can start to see a shift. It's going from really ugly and me hating it to actually, yeah, I'm bringing in some more details. I've tweaked 100 things and it's actually starting to look something like. So for me, I just have to keep working on it until I like it. I get really frustrated if it's not going my way just to leave it. Like, I have to keep working on it until I like it. I feel like that's one of the best ways to really refine your drawing skills. And it's a really good way to learn because you're constantly reflecting on all of those little tweaks that you've made and you kind of remember them for the next drawing that you do. So that same thing doesn't happen, or if it does, you know how to approach it without having like a absolute meltdown of how the drawing is not going your way and how much you don't like it. So I think never see a drawing as impossible. There'll be some that are way harder than others. And if you are working on a drawing that you think is really, really difficult and you're not entirely sure how to tackle it, think about which aspect of that drawing is the most challenging for you. And then maybe go and see if you can find like a focus tutorial on Patreon or on YouTube and try and work through that texture so you become more confident in how to build up a certain texture or what colours to use, and then you can apply that to your drawing and that should really help. The next question is, would it be more beneficial to set up a website from the get-go to sell artwork or an Etsy shop first? I'm trying to think what order I did that in. I'm sure I set up my website first, but I'd not set up a shop on my website. I'd set up a shop on my Etsy shop, and then on my website, which was very, very basic back in the day, I'd just have links like all over the place that took people straight to my Etsy shop. I think setting up an Etsy shop, if you've got loads of products to put on there, like prints, cards, like it depends what you're trying to sell. Original work prints, like bookmarks, greetings cards, that whole like crafty side, or the originals and print side, or bespoke commission side, which some people do. Really have a think about what it is you want to sell. I think before either of those though, you need to just grow an audience on social media, and that doesn't mean that you need to have like 20,000 followers. Even if you have like a few hundred or 100, if you're having people that are messaging you about what you're doing, that is people that are interested and a potential customer. So you're already halfway there in creating a sale. I think Etsy is a good one to start with first, to be honest. Although there's a lot of like platform fees. So when you sell a product on Etsy, they take a percentage of the sale. And then there's like payment fees, processing fees. So they take quite a big chunk, to be honest. But because Etsy is already quite a big platform, you can use hashtags and you can categorize your product into a specific thing that people are actually looking for, and it might show up. And I think with Etsy, the more sales that you get, the more Etsy kind of pushes your shop in front of people. So if you sold like 5 products within a day and they could see that, you know, people are actually interested in your shop, you can see anyway, people can follow your shop and you can see what people have clicked on and stuff. I think it's a good way to be exposed to more people that your Instagram might not be able to reach yet because you haven't grown to a big audience. I feel like I'm just talking through all my thoughts and not really making any sense. But I think most importantly, social media growth to a certain point until people are like interested, and you can tell that by comments and DMs. Start an Etsy shop first and really think about the products you want to sell. Take really, really good, like quality, clean product photos, because that can also make a big difference. It takes ages to set up an Etsy shop as well. It took me forever, especially if you've got a lot of stuff to put on there, because it's like the description, you've got to categorize every single thing, taking all the product photos. It's kind of like a full day job doing it, but once you've done it, it's on there then. And then whilst you're still growing your Instagram following, you can always be like posting your products from Etsy and linking it so people can easily click on that product and it'll take them straight to Etsy where they can buy the print or the greetings card, whatever it is. Everything's kind of intertwined, but you need to be growing everything at the same time. And then I think once you've grown your social media quite a lot more, I'd then think about starting a website shop. And again, it does take quite a long time with all the product pictures and descriptions and setting everything up. But once it's up, it's on there. And then you just need to kind of maintain it. So when you get new products, make sure to add them. I use Wix, but I know a lot of people use different things, but you can literally see real time what people are interested in, what your most popular products are based off that. It gives you really in-depth analytics that I feel like Etsy doesn't. Etsy still does give you quite a lot of in-depth analytics, but nowhere near to the extent of your website. And then obviously with all that information, you can improve your shop, you can push more of your print side of things, or you can kind of see what's doing well, what's not, and focus on different things. But yeah, I'd say social media growth, Etsy shop, keep going with the social media growth, and then do the website shop. So Etsy shop first, website shop second. But that's literally just with my experience from it. You might want to do it the other way around, and it's up to you, as long as people can easily access your products. I think one other thing to consider as well, if you are fairly early to all of the like website shop, Etsy shop sort of stuff, selling products, people might trust the platform of Etsy more than your website that might have just been built. It's very basic, and they might think, oh, I'd rather buy through Etsy, which is a company that I've heard of and I trust, rather than an artist website that sort of looks half finished or very basic. So bear that in mind as well. So that's probably why I'd probably start an Etsy shop first. The next question is, where do you see your business in 5 years' time? I feel like I didn't think I'd be doing all of this 5 years ago, so I'm not entirely sure. Obviously, this year I want to explore more of the teaching side. I'm really enjoying my podcast every week. I know that it gives a lot of value to people, and it's really nice sort of getting all, there's cat hairs literally floating through the air. There's a lot of value I think that my podcast gives, and I love receiving all that positive feedback and just knowing how much it's helped people every week, like discussing all these different topics that people might not have even thought about, which is always a good thing. And obviously having more conversations with other artists, getting their perspective on things and listening to their journeys and stuff. I feel like I'm loving everything that I'm doing now, but I just want to do it all on a bigger scale. I feel like the direction of a business is determined by what opportunities you receive and the decisions you make and what opportunities you go for. And I feel like I've got some really exciting things coming up this summer, which has been planned for quite a while, which I'm excited for, in the a collaboration with Trentham Monkey Forest. So that's something to look forward to. Doing a workshop or two there, and a huge content day. So that should be really good. And yeah, I just feel like I'm really enjoying the teaching side. I want to keep pushing Patreon and just continuing to build more of a community of like-minded artists that all have drawing in common and just loving animals in common. I also think instead of sharing exactly what I want to be doing in the next 5 years or whatever, 5 years time, I like to sort of work on things without saying anything and then just be like, I've just done this, but it's taken me 3 years in the making. I kind of like to do that, because if you go around saying, oh, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that, I'm going to do that, you're kind of talking about it like you've already done it, and then you don't end up doing it. So I like the results to do the talking, if that makes sense. But yeah, I think in 5 years, I'm just going to go with what I'm doing, what I enjoy, and let the opportunities sort of guide the way, because you don't actually know what's around the corner. What is one animal you'd like to draw this year? I actually found this reference photo the other day because I'm about to start my entry for the David Shepherd Wildlife Artist of the Year competition, which I enter every year and haven't yet been shortlisted. This is now going to be my 6th year. I've actually chosen the image that I'm going to be working from, but this was a contender. If you're watching on YouTube, my iPad's just died, brilliant. But basically it was a baboon, I think, and the colours in it were just gorgeous, and it was really close up, really detailed, and I feel like if I did that on drafting film, it would turn out really well. But yeah, I've gone with something completely different, so I think I might do that baboon as a tutorial for Patreon potentially this year, because we've not drawn that so far, and there's a lot of different textures and colours going on, so I think it'd be quite an interesting drawing and tutorial to teach. And seeing as my iPad's died and my phone is what's filming me, I can't access any more questions. So there was only a couple left and I feel like I've answered all the good ones there. So yeah, thank you for watching this episode and another artist Q&A. If you've got any other questions that you'd like me to answer in future episodes, then comment below and I will answer them at some point. If you've been watching on YouTube, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. And if you've been listening on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, I'd love it if you could comment, leave a review and share the episode with someone that you think it might help. And yeah, hope you all have a lovely rest of the week, and I'll be back next week, hopefully with another artist. I'm going to be talking to Caitlin Grace, who is a pet portrait and wildlife artist based in Australia. So we're currently figuring out the time difference because obviously I'm in the UK, she's in Australia. So I think it's going to be really late for me and really early for her. But yeah, we're still figuring it out, but hopefully that's going to be next week. But yeah, thank you so much for listening. I hope you really enjoyed this episode and I'll see you next week.